now that he has been emasculated, were they suggesting that before now, those things that were meant to be signed by the president, that he was signing it?
Which is why he's quickly saying he's been complying with the law.
That is
and
that
the
is
president
the
has
reality.
been signing.
Right.
Yes.
Because if the law says the president should approve those things,
It must go to the president.
Right.
So saying now, putting it in print now, it has made its way into the newspaper, does not mean that before now he has been doing what the president was supposed to do. When it is within his own level to approve, he will approve. When it is above him, he takes it to the next level, which is the president to sign.
Yesterday, when this came up, Gbolahan, I remember you saying that it might probably be the best policy of this government, so far. And you also said that the only fear is the politicization of this development. I'm looking at headlines from Daily Independent, and it appears that you are somewhat of a prophet because Afenifere is saying that his position as vice president is now redundant. Ozekome is saying that Buhari will soon move against Tinubu's loyalists, and the presidency is countering them, saying VP didn't flout due process in supervision of agencies. It appears that this is tilting towards politics.
Yes, the political side of things are coming up. There will still be more conspiracy theories. I expect that by the time we get to the weekend papers, there will have been some more detailed stories about all these things that we're talking about. But see, it doesn't remove the fact that, number one, that new committee,
right,
is superb.
and it's what we need.
And can take us out of the economic doldrums that we have found ourselves. It doesn't also remove the fact that the precursor, the economic management team that was more or less disbanded, couldn't have delivered what this new committee is capable of delivering, because that initial committee was a committee of ministers who already... We're not going to get anything new in the real sense.
Now we have professionals sitting and discussing.
So I guess the major challenge here is, why they're reporting directly to the president. A lot of people would have said President Buhari could have disbanded the old committee and put this new committee still under the vice president. Is that enough?
Someone suggested that he could be.
It makes sense, but that's an additional layer in the real sense of it. And then when they say they report directly to the president, don't assume that it will be the president sitting alone when they present, say, an oral situation. That the report that they send to the president that some other eyes will not view it.
Just for the ears of the president.
It's just the reporting line. And when the president is meeting with this committee physically, there will be other people there. And you cannot rule out the fact that even the vice president might be in that meeting.
Well, the agencies being supervised by the vice president in this report in the nation are the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, the National Boundary Commission, the Border Communities Development Agency, and the Social Investment Programs. And it was gathered, according to this report, that the SIP, that's the Social Investment Programs, may now begin to operate under the newly created Ministry of Social Development, Humanitarian Affairs, and Disaster Management. So I guess
we spoke about that yesterday. Why do we have NEMA and we also
still have a ministry?
Ministries, if they're merging the operation of those two institutions, I think it's part of the rationalization of all this duplicity that we have in the polity. And it's a step in the right direction, honestly. See, the vice president is a man of capacity. And it will be a disservice, even to the president himself, to have such a man beside him and not deploy him maximally. Hitherto, he has been the poster boy, like everybody says, And even when the president was not available, we all knew how he took over and took drastic steps that were positive.
Every time he was standing in for the president, something would shake.
And just to add this, it's a rider to one big headline, but we can't just throw it away. They're saying that the president is planning a move to sideline Osinbajo, and the VP's aide have been relocated out of the presidential villa. The conspiracy theory it's just spinning out of control.
We will get more of this conspiracy.
And today is just Wednesday. We have more days for this to grow. Let's see this one on the Vanguard. After apology, South Africa delays airlift of returnees. The four riders on the Vanguard. Landing permits not issued to airpeace for hours. Why xenophobic attacks would not be discussed at UNGA That's according to Oyama. Reps to meet Buhari insists on compensation. Baja threatens to report foreign minister to president. What is this about? In a moment we'll get into it. Banner headline also on the Punch. 818 Nigerians waiting for evacuation in South Africa, says federal government. Government plans to bring back 25 detained Nigerians. The story also makes it to the nation. 320 Nigerians to return from South Africa today. Clark cautions government. You find this across other dailies.
It's here on the front page of Daily Sun newspaper. Xenophobic attacks. Airpeace airlift fresh batch. Rider FG rules out reporting South Africa to the United Nations. That's Daily Sun newspaper. Moving on to Daily Independent this morning. Xenophobia. Gbajabiamila Mila vows to drag minister before Buhari. The way they just coin these.
Drag. Yeah, like come along with me. Just come along with me. I'm imagining that.
Also from Daily Independent, foreign airlines avoid South Africa over xenophobia. Right, 320 Nigerians return today. That's Daily Independent newspaper.
Okay, yesterday when we were talking about this same topic, we had said apologies is an order. We can make apologies, but it's just the beginning, and which is why we need to interrogate what really happened with the delayed issuance of a landing permit. You can't get an aircraft into somebody's airspace or airport without the landing permit.
Right.
And this news about Nigerian airlifting is not new. It's not as if it came as an emergency.
Yeah,
so
they didn't know what
it
was
was
going to
happen. So there's a need for us to interrogate what exactly went wrong. For all you care, it might be on our side. Maybe there was something we didn't do.
Exactly.
But we need to get to the bottom of it. Otherwise, because that incident might undermine the sense of true apology that has been made.
I get it that it might have the cause for this delay might have been from either side. I get it.
Yes, it could be from either side.
But this is the same airline that airlifted first batch from South Africa. So it's very hard to say that they didn't know what they were supposed to do in applying for landing permit. That's number one.
They are in the airline business, so
exactly,
they know.
exactly.
They do this every day.
It's quite very hard to say that it's the fault could be from our end. That's number one. Number two is even after obtaining that landing permit, they were still told not to come in, to wait till 12 midnight before they can come in, because according to the chairman of Airpeace, Oyema, Alain Oyema, he actually, after obtaining the landing permit, he ordered his pilot to try and fly into South Africa. And they were told by South African authorities not to come in now, that actually they would love them to wait and come in at around 8 a.m. South African time. That means they must have left. They will have to leave Nigeria at 12 a.m. Then they will get to South Africa by 8 a.m. Then they can leave, and get to Nigeria by 5 or thereabouts.
I hear you loud and clear, Sheriff. That is why we must interrogate exactly what happened and what went wrong. If after granting the landing permit, you still dilly-dallying, or you still delaying the process, is it that there is something genuine they need to carry out that has not been carried out at that point in time? Are there landing issues, around that time? There could be several reasons,
right.
But rather than reach conclusions, it's better to interrogate. And I want to believe that, considering how the relationship has been, that the necessary authorities will get to the bottom of it.
Right. Let's see this next story. CBN begins charges on deposits withdrawals above 500,000 naira. We're looking for this money.
At all costs.
By all means, we're looking for this money.
This money must come out. And from the report that we're getting, it's like, it featured in our news this morning that if you're depositing any money above 500,000 naira, from 500,000 naira and above, you have to pay 3%, processing fee for individual accounts. And I'm wondering, it's not a new policy. It's just that the government is starting to implement this now. How far will this go in encouraging, what do you call it again?
Cashless
policy.
Exactly.
And this takes effect from today.
Okay. I think the caption from the newspapers are wrong to say begins. I think it's better to say we're bringing this back because it had been implemented before.
Oh, okay.
It was implemented in Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja, all the major cities. I had paid severally
Right.
those charges.
3%.
That we're talking about. And that was in the previous government.
Okay.
At some point, some arguments were made and all the rest, and this thing was taken off the ground to say, okay, everybody, just let's move on. But if we are really going to do cashless environment, we have to be committed to it. Now, the newspaper also seemed to have spoken about the charges. They didn't talk about the fact that they've also lowered the charges for the electronic part of things, which means they're saying move on to the electronic platform.
Right.
So the people, the merchants who collect their money via the POS, some of the reasons why some of them do not do those things is because of some charges. So
Right.
CBN has gone ahead to lower those charges to encourage them to come onto that platform and leave cash alone. We are too heavy on cash.
We are. We are.
I remember in my graduate days in the US, when I first got to one of the problem I had was writing. When I write a check for say $5, I will always mistakenly put 1,000 behind it, and then they will return it and say, no, this is not correct. And that's because where I was coming from, we don't write $5 checks.
Right.
We are cash people.
Yeah, it has to be big money.
It has to be big money. So that is the reality. And the cost of processing cash is huge, both for the banks and for the central bank in itself. Is something we need to move away from. It also encourages graft.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's easy to move the cash around. Do you
yes.
think this implementation, so this is a nationwide implementation, do you think it would help the cashless
I'm also,
policy?
I have my doubt about whether we can go full blast throughout the whole nation. Maybe we still need to restore the stage-wise implementation that we
Right.
did before.
So what
Right.
they're saying from this statement is that the child deposit would apply in Lagos, Ogun, Kano, Abia, Anambra, and Rivers State, as well as the FCT. The implementation of the cashless policy will take effect from March 31st, 2020.
So there is a
We can
time to
ease
campaign.
into
We can ease into it. I think that's the right approach. Right?
Really.
But it's a place to go. It will come with its own little pains here and there.
So go read more about this story in the Punch. It's a story that you can find in the Punch newspaper for today. If we move on and talk about minimum wage, on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, minimum wage, prepare for nationwide strike.
Okay.
Roll the drums. Labour tells civil servant. Oh goodness, I hope not. And it's also on the Guardian newspaper. Fresh strike looms over implementation of new minimum wage.
Well,
I guess we're at that junction where
Again.
we must. We need to avoid it, number one, because it has serious economic implications for us. When people down tools, there is a lot of losses happen in the economy.
right.
At the same time, I think the problem is that they've not been able to agree on the adjustments
Right.
that is required to be made. If there is need to bring in more people beyond the current negotiators, I think the federal government should consider it, even if it's at the level of the presidency, to more or less bear out the realities, put all the cards on the table, and be able to, get a negotiated position on how we move forward on this matter.
If you ask the labor, if you ask union members whether the federal government, the Nigerian government can pay this new minimum wage, they will tell you that we can. Gbolahan,
Yes,
you're a
yes,
chartered accountant.
yes.
You know about this. Can we pay? No, realistically now, can we pay?
Unless we're squeezing out some sacrifices, if maybe we may be able to pay, that's at the federal level. Don't forget that there is a lot beyond the federal,
Right.
the states.
Right.
And most of the problem we're having is not even coming from the federal, though the federal has its own serious cash flow issues. It's coming from the state. Are there states today that are owing salaries Let's be frank. There are.
Putting capitals.
Yes,
yes.
absolutely. There are owing salaries, and that is at 18%.
And we keep talking about states looking for ways to generate revenue. We talk about this all the time.
All the time.
And it doesn't look like any one of them wants to do anything about it.
Easy money is
easy to.
Easy money is easy.
Let's tell you this adjustment. There's a statement here, which says that the Consequential Adjustment Committee 2 weeks ago agreed that the proposal of the TUS, the salary of officers on grade levels 7 to 14, should be increased by 29%, and those of officers on grade levels 15 to 17 should be increased by 24%, vis-a-vis that of government, a side of 10% for officers on grade levels 0 to 14, 5.7% for those on grade levels 15 to 17, and should be forwarded to the president. When the meeting convened on Monday to get a feedback on the expected approval from the president, government officials came with their proposal of 11% for where they had proposed 29. You see where the deadlock is, and 6.5%. So
it's easy to see what will have happened. Labour will want something that puts more money in the pockets of Labour,
right?
While government will want something that spends less money from the pocket of the government.
Right.
It's being able to reach a midpoint that is also going to be effective when it comes to implementation. That is the junction. It's doable, honestly.
Okay. All right, let's move on to our next story this morning. I was watching this on TV just this morning. Army court marshals former GOC over alleged stolen 400 million naira. As from the front page of Daily Independent, just above the nameplate, Army court marshals former GOC over alleged stolen 400 million naira. Daily Independent, and from Daily Trust, Army begins trial of ex-GOC over stolen 400 million naira.
And there's a photo here on the front page of the Vanguard with the GOC, that's the Major General Hakeem Otsiki, GOC 8th Division of the Nigerian Army, who's on a wheelchair facing the General Court Martial headed by Lieutenant General L.O. Adeosun and others yesterday in Abuja. There's also the headline on The Guardian, Army Court Martial's GOC over alleged 400 million naira theft.
Well, this is a step in the right direction, because impunity is actually one of the biggest problems of this country. So let him go through the process, and if he's found guilty, appropriate sanctions should be meted. But I saw the gentleman on the wheelchair, and there's this thing about wheelchairs, and when people are having corruption issues, suddenly trials, they start to show up on wheelchairs.
You think it's a strategy?
It could be a strategy one. It could also be the fact that
famous person who suddenly will be unable to walk, or even stand.
And a few days later, he may say he spent 11 hours on a tree in the forest. So that's
oh my days!
It's an interesting dimension for us.
But
I think it's quite entertaining.
Right.
It shouldn't take away from the heart of the matter. Let's go through the prosecution. If he's guilty, let him face the music.
Right. Let's continue with the corruption trial. Buhari dissolves Obona Oblast presidential panel. Riders orders ICPC to prosecute him. Resolves police PSC Tonsu, says PSC empowered to appoint and promote.
I think effectively PMB gets there, but there is usually this long time that sends the wrong signal.
It takes its time. It takes its time.
If you remember the former SGF, it was the same thing. It took a long time before it said, okay, this man, you need to step aside and get him prosecuted. I think the case is still in court as we speak. The same with Obla. Obla's issue broke way back, but the gentleman continued in his position for a long time until apparently now that is going to face investigation and prosecution. We are not patient enough for this approach, and I think government needs to realize this and act in such a manner. If somebody has been accused of some grave offenses like that, the right thing would not be to ask them to sit there, would be to ask. It's better you ask them to step aside. Let investigation. If they are found not wanting, you can restore them.
So that's where the problem lies.
That's the problem.
And I'm glad that we're there now. The problem I'm talking about is that we are very quick to name names without concrete evidence. Why should you name somebody as corrupt when you don't have concrete evidence? Why should the person step aside when you're not ready to present the evidence? Why can't you go ahead, do your investigation, have your evidence, and tender it so that the person can rightly step aside? Isn't that a major problem in our justice system?
It is a major problem. I agree with you. But when you also look closely at some of these issues we're talking about, where the accusations normally come from, it's not from the investigative agencies.
Right.
It might be even from the National Assembly. There's a deliberation one day, somebody said, I have this information, and then before you know it, it's all over the media. So the media issue starts first. And media issues are not necessarily where these things should start. The real meat of the matter is the investigative agencies need to get into the matter.
Remember what the FBI did in arresting.
See that detail.
So they had the detail, and then they went after them.
Yes.
So straight from the arrest, they'll be going to court.
Right.
I mean, the investigation is going to take just a little more, and then you head over to court.
So you have a situation here where the media and some other people are ahead of the investigative apparatus.
Because they put it in the media. They don't like the media. Remember the issue between the police and the army? They were doing their trial on
in
Twitter.
the media.
Let's take this final story. A very quick comment on this one. Gbolahan, federal government inaugurates panel to recover 5 trillion naira AMCON assets. I see some buildings here in Via already being marked and closed down by AMCON.
They are all over Lagos. They are all over Abuja. All over the whole place.
Federal government moves to recover. How do they do this?
It's a tough thing. In
Do
reality.
you think we need a panel to again look into this?
Yeah, I mean, look at that panel, EFCC. I mean, ICPC.
Yeah.
We definitely need a panel because hitherto, AMCON is not an investigative organization.
Right.
It's
a debt recovery.
It's a debt. I will even say debt management. Really, So for us to be able to go through those necessary investigations, people with capacity and authority to investigate must be brought into the mix. And at the same time, it's a challenging thing.
It is.
But
Absolutely.
I wish this committee
Absolutely.
all the best.
A few comments from WhatsApp. Olojede from Odonla in Ikorodu says, and the minimum wage, the life of Nigerian workers is a life of struggle to get salary, struggle to get promotion, struggle to get gratuity, struggle to get pension, and now struggle for ordinary 30,000 naira minimum wage that can't even feed our honorable dogs for a month. Well, thank you all for joining the live stream on Facebook, also on YouTube. Olojede, thank you.
It's good to be here.
When we come back, we'll be speaking with some returnees, some Nigerians who returned from South Africa last week to share their experiences with us. This is going to be quite an emotional one. Make sure you join us just after the break. We'll be back shortly. I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
I'm Sheriff Quadry.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We'll be right back.